Good morning, everyone. Today's lesson is called the Anglo Backlash versus Yahushua Hamashiachs, Retribution and Judgment. Surely the 400 years is over, and our enemy knows it. He is taking steps to squash God's people waking up to their history, waking up to their identity, waking up and finding out that they have been lied to. They've been lied to about their history, about their identity, about their relationship with their God. We have been lied to about everything. It has been a media blitz. It has been an educational blitz. It has been a concerted effort to keep God's chosen people from knowing their heritage, knowing their history and their special relationship with our God. The way have been replaced with Christianity, which further alienates us from our God and causes us to bow down to a false image, a false idol made in the image of our evil oppressors. With that, let us jump in. But first, let's have a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we pray once again that you open up our minds and that you open up our hearts, that we might understand the lesson today, that we might understand what is happening all around us today, that we might understand systemic racism against your people is everywhere, that we might understand that you will fight for us, that we do not have to fight for ourselves, but we must stand up to our enemies and we must tell him, no, we will not go backward. We will not be pushed back into the margins of society. We will not go back into the darkness of ignorance concerning who we are, concerning who the real Israelites really are. But it's time for us to wake up. It is time, and no one can put us back to sleep, because now we see, and even if you try to make us blind again, we cannot unsee what we have saw. Help us, dear Lord, to continue our awakening. We pray that you would put our enemy in his place. We pray that you will humble them and that you will continue your campaign of judgment against them, that you will give them a backlash that they will never forget. In Yeshua's name we ask this. Amen and amen. Let's jump in.
Do you really think God protects a nation built on hate, greed, and war? A nation that discriminates, that looks down on people from other countries and destroys families? Do you think that's what God stands for? Do you think God blesses governments that rip children from their parents, throw them into cages, and deport them to a country they don't even know? Where is the justice in that? Where is the humanity? A strong nation isn't one that uses its power to crush others. True strength is compassion. True strength is lifting others up, not tearing them down. But how can a nation ask for God's blessing when it's spreading hate, waging wars, and leaving its own people to suffer while giving billions to others? Wake up. God doesn't stand with those who oppress, exploit, and destroy. No government that acts with cruelty and greed can claim to have God on their side. One day they'll have to answer for it, so let me be clear. Real strength comes from justice, from humanity, from standing for what's right. Without that, no nation is blessed. Period. The elderly man reflects on a time when love and unity prevailed, contemplating how the innocence of children should never be overshadowed by hatred. He wonders why society has drifted so far from compassion, yearning for a return to values that uplift rather than divide. Meanwhile, the activists rally together, their voices rising in unison, urging for a change that prioritizes humanity over greed. They believe that every individual deserves kindness and respect, advocating for a world where no one is left behind. Each chant echoes with the conviction that true progress comes from understanding and embracing our shared humanity, leaving behind the shadows of oppression and injustice.
But as for you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, my chosen one, descended from my friend Abraham, I have called you back from the ends of the earth so you can serve me. For I have chosen you and will not throw you away. Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my victorious right hand. See, all your angry enemies lie there confused and ashamed. Anyone who opposes you will die. You will look for them in vain. vain. They will all be gone. I am holding you by your right hand, I, the Lord your God. And I say to you, do not be afraid. I am here to help you. Despised though you are, O Israel, don't be afraid, for I will help you. I am the Lord your Redeemer. I am the Holy One of Israel.
God tells his people, do not be afraid. It is important that we know who we are. We are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God says that we are his chosen people, descendants from Abraham, who was his friend. We need to remember those things. God says, do not be discouraged. Why? Because he is our God. He is our strength, and he will be victorious with his right hand over our enemies. He says those that attack his children attack him, and he will conquer them, and he will in turn attack them, bringing them to nothing. He says, O Jacob, do not be afraid, people of Israel, for I will help you. I am the Lord your Redeemer. I am the Holy One of Israel. And God says he will fight for us because we are the apple of his eye. Our enemies, they know who we are. This is why they are trying to single us out as a people and destroy us if they can in the land of our captivity. Listen at this next video. It will show you the attempts that the Anglo world to put us back underneath their thumb, to put us back underneath their foot, to put us back under the yoke of oppression. The reason they are doing this is because they are afraid. They are afraid of one thing, one little word this whole nation is afraid of. Not only this nation, but Anglo nations all around the world is one word, is called woke. They have tried to say that woke means different things than what we mean. Let me clarify. Woke means that we are woke to the fact that our identity has been stolen, that our identity has been hidden, that our history has been hidden, that our achievement in the land of our enemies, even though we were oppressed, our achievements are many. They feel like they've let the cat out of the box, and trying to herd all those cats back in is becoming more and more difficult. But our minds are woke, and we are reconnecting with the truth of who we are. Our heritage and our special relationship with our Creator and our Savior has also been fashioned into a weapon that has been used against us. Woke threatens all of that because the 400 years of our long slumber has come to an end, and our oppressors are terrified of the consequences of that. They're doing whatever they can to put us back to sleep. But it won't work because our God is the one who is waking up his people. Let me outline through showing you a series of videos of what has been happening lately as the Anglo oppressors attempt to backhand the people of God, because the 400 years of God's punishment has come to an end. No weapon formed against us will be successful. No weapon formed against us will be prosperous, because God is greater than our enemies. They are about to feel the backhand of the one who called us, the one who chose us out of all of the peoples of the earth to be a special possession to himself. Our enemies will not prosper. God will bring confusion to them. He has already brought fear into their hearts. They're trying to do everything they can to keep us asleep, to keep us afraid and dependent upon them. They talk about critical race theory, that It can no longer be taught in the classrooms because it makes our oppressors feel like oppressors. It makes them feel like they're the enemies of the living God. So they want to suppress our history and our heritage so that we can roll over and go back to sleep. Well, I can tell you that's not going to happen. Take a listen. Yes, the time is up. The time for our enemies is over. They think they have power over us, but they do not. They think they can shove us back into the margins of history, but they cannot. The 400 years has come to a close of our oppression. Time has been served. Read Deuteronomy 28:15 through 68, and you will see what God has to say about these things. Judgment is about to come. God's backlash is about to come, and our enemies will not be able to stand. God says, "Come out of her, my people, because my backlash is about to come upon our enemies." And they know it's coming. This is why they're doing the things that they are doing. But these weapons will no longer work against God's people because God is the one who fights for us. The name that you need to fear is Yahushua Hamashiachs, because soon you will feel the full force of his backhand. The only message I have for my enemies is brace for impact. Listen at this. Yahushua is talking to his people and about his people. He says, "Miserable are they that afflict you." He is talking about those that afflict his people, and rejoice at your fall. Miserable are the cities which your children served. Miserable is she that receives your sons. For as she rejoiced at your fall, and was glad of your ruin, so shall she be grieved for her own desolation. And I will take away her exhortation in her great multitude, and her boasting shall be turned into mourning. Baruch 4:31 through 34. America needs to listen. Let me give you an idea of the type of weaponry that my God uses and will use against all of the Anglo nations that have so badly mistreated his people for so very long. You got away with it in the past, but God says the 400 years is up and you will no longer be allowed to get away with what you have done to his people. It is now time for God's retribution, God's recompense for what you have done. In other words, he's going to give you his backhand, his backlash, if you will. It will come in the form of many types of judgments. Look at these next few videos and you will have an idea of how my God fights, and you will not be able to do a darn thing about it. Your jets will be ineffective against these kinds of weapons. Your nuclear weapons will be turned on your own head. Your ships will not be effective. Your bullets won't work. Your oppression won't work on my God. Your lies will no longer work on him because he knows all things. Your deception will no longer work because God is waking his people up. They're seeing you for what you really are. Brace for God's judgment against you because you have dared to put your hand on the apple of his eye, and you wasn't afraid. That's going to change. You'll find out what fear really is when you find yourself fighting even against the living God. You cannot stand when he draws his sword. Psalms 55:21 gives a good example of why God's judgment is going to come. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn a sword. Psalms 58:3-4. These wicked people are born sinners. He's talking about the Edomite. These people are born sinners. Even from birth, they have lied and gone their own way. They spit venom like deadly snakes. They are like cobras that refuse to listen. Yes, they have no fear of God before their eye. And then look at the picture of Jesus Christ and the little black baby on the right-hand side. Jesus Christ is white. Yahushua Hamashiach is black. Jesus asks, "Do you know who I am?" The little woke black child says, "Yes, the devil." He said that because he is woke. His mind realizes that this is a fictitious figure, that this is a graven image made in the image of his oppressor. He knows he is not his Lord, neither is he his Savior. Out of the mouth of babes, as I said, there is judgment coming. Let me give you a taste of what kind of weapons God will use against you. Yes, God have changed the dynamics of the earth. In Deuteronomy 18, he says, "In my anger I have kindled a fire in the hearts of the earth, and in the last days it will burn to the foundations of the mountains." In other words, the earth is heating up from the inside. The earth's crust is heating up. And as a result, the entire planet is warming. This is a irreversible phenomena of judgment that God is putting on this world. He will use it to destroy the enemies of his people. You think you can fix it. Oh, let's just make electric cars. Let's use solar energy. That won't fix it because it is warming up from the inside. And God says that the weather will be a factor. You can no longer depend on it because it has been turned against the enemies of the living God. Look at this next video and you will see that God is causing strange weather all over the world. Things are different and they will never be the same again. God says they will be like birth pains upon a woman. They will start small and gradual, but they will get more and more intense and closer together as they intensify until the enemies of God and his people would have been destroyed. And then he will make a new heavens and a new earth as he rescues his people from the hands of their enemies. Listen at this next video.
California, Los Angeles area faced one of its most devastating wildfire seasons, fueled by powerful winds and extreme drought. But how did it happen, and who was affected? Let's break it down. It all started on January 7th, when the Palisades Fire erupted in Pacific Palisades, spreading rapidly and scorching over 23,000 acres. Just hours later, the Eaton Fire ignited in the National Forest north of LA, destroying nearly 9,500 structures. At least 28 lives have been lost, with many still missing. Thousands of homes have been reduced to ash, leaving entire neighborhoods unrecognizable and an estimated 200,000 residents displaced at the peak of the crisis. Beyond the human toll, the financial cost is staggering. Insured losses could exceed $20 billion, and total economic damage may reach $50 billion, making this one of the costliest wildfires in U.S. history. So, what caused this disaster? A dangerous combination: record-breaking drought conditions, winds gusting up to 70 miles per hour, and Southern California's climate whiplash, swinging between droughts and heavy rains, all worsened by a warming climate. As containment efforts near completion, the question remains: how can we adapt to a future where fires like these are becoming the new normal?
The U.S. government seems more focused on sending aid money abroad for foreign wars and on assisting its own residents during crises, such as the recent wildfires in Los Angeles that left many people homeless and destitute. While billions are spent on military operations overseas, residents in Los Angeles have lost everything. Homes reduced to ash, possessions gone, and only the clothes on their backs remaining. It's disheartening to see taxpayer money funding conflicts abroad while urgent domestic needs go unmet. Tragically, when disaster strikes at home and aid becomes essential for survival, the government often appears ill-prepared to respond. This raises serious questions about the allocation of taxpayer funds and the government's priorities.
This is our retirement. This is our nest egg. This is where we moved in when we got married. This is where our son was born. This was our house.
As raging wildfires tore through Los Angeles, they left devastation in their wake, obliterating entire communities. Over 28,000 structures were reduced to ashes, and nearly 58,000 acres of land were scorched beyond recognition. Families fled in desperation, clutching whatever they could carry as flames consumed their homes, their memories, and, for some, their lives. More than 270,000 people have been displaced, forced into overcrowded shelters or struggling to survive in makeshift housing. Tragically, 48 lives have been lost. Yet, amidst this heartbreaking catastrophe, the government's response has been shockingly inadequate, leaving countless survivors feeling abandoned when they need help the most. The federal government has cited a lack of funding for its inability to provide robust disaster relief to wildfire survivors. This excuse feels particularly hollow when contrasted with the billions of dollars allocated to foreign wars and military aid. In 2024 alone, the U.S. sent $29.1 billion in aid to Israel, a country involved in ongoing conflict that has reportedly resulted in the deaths of thousands, including children funded by American tax dollars. Since October 7, 2023, Israel has killed at least 17,400 children in Gaza. Meanwhile, between January 2022 and December 2024, the U.S. committed $139 billion to support Ukraine amid its war with Russia. These figures are staggering, and they reflect a troubling disparity. While foreign aid flows freely, American citizens are left to face crises like homelessness and natural disasters with minimal support. The allocation of tax dollars has long been a contentious issue, and this crisis has brought that debate into sharp focus. Why are we sending billions abroad when our own citizens are in desperate need? It's not just about money. It's about priorities. The government justifies its foreign aid spending as necessary for global stability and protecting allies. But what about stability at home? What about protecting American families who've lost everything? This is not just a call for change. It is a demand for accountability. Taxpayer money should first and foremost serve those who contribute it.
Yup, this is the last warning from our planet, as the rarest, most violent, deadliest disaster is destroying roads, bridges, and huge parts of the U.S., and nothing we have will protect us from it. People were terrified after the deadliest, rarest ice storm in U.S. history has blanketed over Kansas City, with eerie videos showing cars not starting up as the interior pipes and engines and wheels were frozen in thick ice, to even concrete roads completely frozen over all overnight. Videos from highways and bridges were even worse, showing cars at a complete standstill as many were afraid to go and ski off, to even those who did getting into an ambulance that cannot move but goes sideways, with experts showing the only way to get around this was to use hockey skis, as even walking or starting up a car could cost you your life.
America's infrastructure is collapsing. We've had some shocking glimpses. The levees in New Orleans, the interstate bridge that went down in Minneapolis, the massive East Coast blackout of 2003.
Imagine a month-long blackout. Imagine major failures of water delivery system in the West. Imagine levee breakdowns that can't be repaired.
We're headed down the road, without much exaggeration, to being a second world or a third world country.
This is the United States of America. Why is our infrastructure in such bad shape?
Infrastructure It's so intrinsic to society that we never think about it, the way we never think about the bones in our body until they start to break.
Mesopotamia, the Incas, the Indus Valley, all of those societies started with dikes and levees and agriculture and roads, and without that, humans would never have risen above the hunter-gatherer status.
Bad things happen when an empire allows its infrastructure to decline.
When we look at Rome as a great civilization, a big part of what made it so great was the infrastructure, the road systems, the bridges, the aqueducts. As the Romans started to neglect that investment, it crumbled and collapsed, and we ended up with the Dark Ages.
Did you know?
But experts say it will take more than a few innovative solutions to turn the tide on America's infrastructure emergency. Above all, it will take massive infusions of money and the will to spend it on maintenance, replacement, and new technologies. If that doesn't happen fast, then America's era of infrastructure decline, complete with chronic breakdowns and escalating dangers, may have just begun.
If you start taking away one brick from the foundation of the infrastructure puzzle, the other pieces start to fall out as well. I don't want to say we're living on the edge, but in some places we're certainly getting to that point.
The biggest problem in this country is we ignored the system for so long. No elected official wants to spend $1 million to fix a crack in a sewer pipe, which is buried under the ground. The time is now to act.
Let's give this country a makeover down to its bones. And with it, we'll improve our quality of life, we'll improve our public safety, and we'll be more economically competitive. I can't think of anything that's more important to the country right now in both the short run and in the long run.
The year 2025 could well be the start of the big apocalypse that may cut off the internet for many years, as harmful radiation from the sun may cause a EMP-like event that could burn out almost every electrical apparatus on planet Earth. Things are definitely changing on planet Earth. God is getting ready to judge. God is also weaponizing the magnetic dynamics of planet Earth. There is a pole shift that is happening as I speak. Many people are not aware that this is happening. In other words, due north is changing. God is changing the dynamics of our planet. We have to constantly adjust our navigation instruments as a result of this pole reversal that is happening. This can be contributed to airplane crashes, car crashes. I don't know if you've noticed that your GPS could be a block off at times until these unforeseen changes are adjusted for. Our atmosphere is changing. Look at the next series of videos. God has many weapons at his disposal to punish mankind for what they are doing to the earth and to his people. Take a look at this next video.
Several airplanes have issues landing in airports due to a physical pole shift and errors on their GPS navigation. This causes all airports to temporarily shut down at some point in the upcoming year and realign their GPS to compensate for the physical pole shift.
Our planet Earth, an amazing place shaped by powerful forces. One of these, which we can't see but is always there, is magnetism. At the heart of this is the magnetic North Pole, but this pole isn't stuck in one place. It's a wanderer, always on the move. For a long time, the magnetic North Pole has been important for explorers and sailors. It's like a guide, a light in the dark. But this light is moving, drifting across the Arctic. This movement is really important for our technology. Navigation systems, which need accurate magnetic information, have to adjust to this moving target. Even the maps we use are changing as the magnetic North Pole moves in unexpected ways. The story of the magnetic North Pole is a journey through time. Back in 1831, James Clark Ross found it in the Canadian Arctic. Since then, it's moved hundreds of miles towards Siberia. This move hasn't been steady. Sometimes the pole moves slowly, just drifting across the Arctic, but lately it's gotten faster. It's moving much quicker than it used to, surprising scientists. This faster movement means we have to update the world magnetic model often. This model is a super important tool for navigation systems everywhere. The magnetic North Pole's constant journey keeps scientists busy, watching its every move and trying to understand how it behaves. Deep inside our planet, in the core, is the source of Earth's magnetism. Melted iron and nickel, moving around like crazy, create the magnetic field that surrounds our planet. This molten core is a wild place with flows and swirls that constantly change the magnetic landscape. The magnetic North Pole isn't a fixed point. It's a result of this dynamic system. It's the spot where the Earth's magnetic field lines come together and go into the Earth. As the flows in the core shift and change, so does the location of the magnetic North Pole. Understanding these complicated processes is really important for predicting where the magnetic North Pole will go next. Scientists use complex models and information from satellites to track these changes and make our navigation tools more accurate. Section 4. Navigating a changing world. The shifting magnetic North Pole creates a special challenge for navigation systems everywhere. Compasses, which used to be reliable tools for finding direction, are now affected by the pole's movement. Navigation systems in ships, airplanes, and even our smartphones have to take these changes into account. The World Magnetic Model, a picture of the Earth's magnetic field used by navigation systems globally, is really important for dealing with this challenge. Regular updates to this model, adding the newest information about where the magnetic North Pole is, are essential for keeping our navigation tools accurate. From the huge oceans to the busy streets of our cities, the impact of the magnetic North Pole's movement is felt everywhere. As we rely more and more on technology, understanding and adapting to these changes is super important. Section 5, the future.
I hate to say it, but something incredibly weird is going on. Do you know how many planes have just straight up fallen out of the air in the United States? And at the same time, something very weird with the air traffic in Las Vegas? Come right back to this. In the last 24 to 48 hours, I have seen so many planes fall down in the United States randomly. Look at that. And then we have the most unlikely people, like ever, speaking on the situation that just happened last night that everyone's talking about. And this one just happened yesterday in California. And as of the last hour, I just saw another helicopter go down in a different country. And then the Black Hawk from last night, were you aware that it almost crashed into 3 separate planes on the way before it finally crashed into that one plane that we are all aware of? Look, I'm just asking why. What's going on in the sky, in the air? That things are just not going right now. And it is...
See at the top is the American Airlines jet as it approached the runway. Then you see the helicopter flying directly into the frame and directly into the plane. Both aircraft immediately then crashing down into the Potomac River. The second video, it appears to be surveillance video from the airport and showing the very same helicopter moving along the river as the plane approaches the runway at DCA, and then the collision and the explosion and into the Potomac River.
Disrupt global communication. In 2025, we might face some serious disruptions due to solar storms that could mess with our communication systems. Imagine you're trying to stream your favorite show, and suddenly, the internet goes out for hours or even days. This is a real possibility if a powerful solar flare hits Earth. These flares can send out bursts of energy that scramble signals from satellites and disrupt everything from cell phone calls to GPS navigation. Think about how much we rely on the internet today, from online banking to ordering food. If a solar storm knocks out these services, it could create chaos in our daily lives. For example, businesses might not be able to process transactions, and emergency services could struggle to communicate. Just like when a severe thunderstorm knocks out power lines, a solar storm could leave us in the dark. But this time, it's not just about lights going out, it's about losing our connection to the world. Experts are warning that unless we take steps to protect our technology, we could see a significant impact on society if these storms hit hard.
So why is God doing all of this to planet Earth? Why is he punishing the nations, most specifically the Anglo nations? Why is he doing these things? Why is he tearing down their systems of oppression? Let me give you some examples as to why God is bringing his judgment to planet Earth. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about God's judgments on Egypt. There is a lot of parallels between why God destroyed Egypt and why he's going to destroy not only America, but the entire Anglo power grid, the entire system. He is going to destroy all of the Gentile nations because together they have confederated a plan to destroy God's people. Now that God's people are waking up, there is a concerted effort to either put them back to sleep or to destroy them or to oppress them to the point of extinction. But God says, I will protect and come to the rescue of my chosen people because they are my special possession. Let me give you some example as to why God is going to judge the nations, starting with the United States and then going to Israel. Donald Trump have went on the offensive to try and humiliate, oppress, and put God's people back in the box of second-class citizenship and to further oppress his people. He is attempting to keep them from waking up. He is attempting to put them back in the systemic racist chains that we've been under since we've entered this country. Look at the next few videos. It will give you an idea and some fact as to what this nation is doing and has been doing to his people. They are afraid that we are waking up, and they are afraid that we will take our rightful place, and they fear that we will do to them what they did to us. What they do not know is we are not like them. If we were, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. We would have long since destroyed you.
Because over 125,000 Native Americans were forcibly removed from their homes, and thousands of voices were silenced forever. This dark chapter in history should never be forgotten. Yet so many people still don't know the true horror of what happened. If we don't remember their suffering, who will? This t-shirt is more than just a piece of clothing. It's a way to keep their voices alive.
Europeans come to this continent, literally ethnically cleanse the indigenous population out of existence, kill them on a scale that has hardly been equaled by the millions, and refer to them as savages. That's an achievement. Who's the savage? If you go, the first time I encountered this was in a little town in Massachusetts called Deerfield, or Old Deerfield. It's a reconstruction of what that little town looked like in colonial America. And so the houses are redone to look like they did then. Very nice job. It's a tourist thing. You go there and you look at that. And in front of each house is a plaque that explains something about this house. It was inhabited by the Yipsy Doodle family or whatever it was. And then description. On the 18th of October of 1702, the savages attacked. I remember the first time I saw this,
The savages. You come in here, destroy everything these people have, and they are the savages. That's an interesting move.
It is.
You know?
I hadn't thought of that before.
Think about it.
The United States and Israel has been working in concert to commit genocide against the Palestinian people. They systematically destroyed and demolished their entire nation. And now President Trump wants to annex that area for Israel because of their beachfront property. He wants to send them to other Arab countries and abandon their home. He's working with Israel, who claims to be the real Jews of God, and they are not. Yeshua says they are of the synagogue of Satan. Luke says that they are Gentiles because Yeshua says that Jerusalem will be trampled down by the Gentiles until Yeshua returns the second time to planet Earth to rescue his true Israelites. So God is going to not only punish the United States for what they have done, he's also going to punish these imposters who are masquerading as the chosen people of God. We are the chosen people of the living God, the ones that they took in the slave trade and many others that ran into different parts of Africa. We are the true children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We are the peoples to whom the promises was made, not these imposters. This is why God is bringing all of these judgments upon the earth, and he's just beginning. Listen at this next video. It will give you an idea of what the United States and Israel has been trying to do in committing another act of genocide. I've just showed you one. Here is another. God says these people will live by the sword because they are the ancestors of Esau. Every place they go, they commit genocide. Every place they go, they ethnically cleanse the area of the indigenous people. But God says your time is up. God is going to stop you.
tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians are returning home to the north of Gaza for the first time since they were forced to flee their homes at the start of Israel's war on Gaza over a year ago. A river of people that stretched for miles walked north along Gaza's coastal road Monday, carrying what's left of their possessions. Most Palestinians will be returning to find their homes reduced to rubble. The UN estimates 92% of homes in Gaza have been destroyed or damaged over the last 16 months. President Trump's facing accusations of supporting ethnic cleansing in Gaza after saying he wants to, quote, clean out the whole thing. Trump called for Egypt and Jordan to take in Palestinians living in Gaza while speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One Saturday. He told the reporters he'd spoken to King Abdullah of Jordan.
I said to him, I'd love you to take on more, because I'm looking at the whole Gaza Strip right now, and it's a mess. It's a real mess.
You'd like Jordan to house people from Gaza?
To take people. I'd like Egypt to take people. I'm talking to General El-Sisi tomorrow, sometime, I believe. And I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people. And we just clean out that whole thing. It's it's over the centuries that's had many, many conflicts at site. And I don't know, it's something has to happen, but it's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything's demolished.
Egypt and Jordan have both rejected Trump's suggestion and emphasized a two-state solution ensuring Palestinian statehood is the only way forward. Hamas and displaced Palestinians in Gaza also rejected the idea of being forced out of Gaza. This is Magdi Sedam, a Palestinian waiting to return to northern Gaza.
The call by the U.S. president is completely rejected. Completely. If he thinks he will forcibly displace the Palestinian people, this is impossible. The Palestinian people firmly believe that this land is theirs. This soil is their soil. No matter how much Israel tries to destroy, break, and to show people that it had won, in reality, it did not win. It destroyed and ruined things and showed the people that it is a failed state.
Trump's suggestion that more than 1 million Palestinians should be moved out of Gaza to neighboring Arab states weren't his first controversial comments on Gaza since returning to office. Shortly after his inauguration last week, Trump said he's, quote, not confident the ceasefire will remain in place. He said Gaza appeared to be a, quote, massive demolition site that should be rebuilt.
Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, best weather, everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
For more on reactions to President Trump's calls to, quote, clean out Gaza, we're joined by the Emmy and Polk Award-winning Egyptian-American journalist Sharif Abdel-Qaddous. He works with Drop Site News and spent years reporting from Egypt as well as from Gaza and the West Bank. He was correspondent on Al Jazeera's Fault Lines documentary, The Night Won't End, Biden's War on Gaza, and did a Polk Award-winning documentary on the killing of the Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. Sharif, welcome back to Democracy Now! It's great to have you here. So these comments of Trump, the last ones echo his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who had said in the last year that Gaza is great beachfront property, talking about it as a kind of real estate deal. Trump, most recently on Air Force One on Saturday night, saying that the more than 1 million Palestinians should be moved to Egypt and Jordan, that he spoke to the Jordanian king. Meanwhile, Jordan and Egypt talk about their responses and, most importantly, the response of Palestinians.
Well, both Jordan and Egypt have rejected this, and they've done so since the beginning of this genocidal assault. These comments were welcomed by the far-right ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who said, this would be the voluntary emigration that they've been dreaming about for Palestinians to be forcibly displaced outside of Gaza and for them to rebuild Jewish settlements in Gaza. I think we have to acknowledge what's happening today, which are these incredible scenes of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have withstood an unprecedented genocidal assault returning back to the north. We spoke at Dropside to Mustafa Barghouti just a few days ago, and he said the return of forcibly displaced Palestinians to the north will be the ultimate defeat of Israeli plans, because it means that the goal of ethnic cleansing did not materialize. Let's remember what happened if we go back to October 7th, 2023, when Benjamin Netanyahu took to the airwaves and declared war on Gaza. He said, leave now, to the 2.3 million Palestinians who are living in Gaza. Just a few days later, we saw this shocking directive for all 1.1 million Palestinians who are north of Wadi Gaza to flee to the south. And we saw this unbelievable, unprecedented aerial bombing campaign, and many people forcibly displaced to the south, many of them to Rafah in the beginning. And let's not forget that at the time, Western governments, including the United States government under the Biden administration, were trying to persuade Egypt to take in hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, displace them in northern Sinai, offering economic incentives. There's reporting that shows that this was taking place. Egypt rejected it at the time, but more importantly, Palestinians rejected this. And then we saw them build what's called the Netzarim corridor, which bisected Gaza. This was a 6 or 7 kilometer wide strip of land. They completely depopulated, forcibly displaced, ethnically cleansed that area, destroyed almost all of the buildings there, set up military bases. And this was essentially, reporting shows in Haaretz, this was called a kill zone. Any man, woman, or child unarmed would enter. It's unclear where the border was of the Netzarim corridor. They would be shot and killed. And this was essentially the place that divided Gaza. Once you crossed there, you could not go back. We saw in October also a concentrated extermination campaign in the very north of Gaza, in Jabalia refugee camp, in Beit Hanun and Beit Lahia, where they completely did not allow any aid in, and then very systematically started attacking these towns and cities and forcing people out on essentially what were death marches to the south across the Netzarim corridor and back. Despite all of this, people withstood, they remained on their land, and now we're seeing these incredible scenes of people returning home. And to think that, Trump can just say they should move to Egypt or Jordan, I think, is preposterous. And we're seeing right now that this is kind of an ultimate defeat of the plans of ethnic cleansing that have dated back to the 1950s for Israel.
So I wanted to go to that quote of Jared Kushner made months ago. That's Trump's son-in-law and former advisor weighing in on Israel's war on Gaza, saying Israel should move Palestinians out of the besieged territory, which he said contains very valuable waterfront property, making the remarks during an event hosted by the Middle East Initiative at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government.
In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up, livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there. But I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterwards.
So that's a pretty amazing comment. Invaluable beachfront property. Earlier today, I was watching the Palestinian attorney Diana Boutou on Al Jazeera when asked about what Trump said. I think all agree it does look like a demolition zone. There's no question about it. How can Palestinians live there? And she said, okay, if there's that question, rather than moving them to neighboring Arab states like Egypt and Jordan, what about moving them home? She said 80% of the people of Gaza come from places in Israel.
Yeah,
I will close with this, a memo to the Defense Intelligence Agency personnel. They received instructions to suspend observances including Holocaust Remembrance Day, MLK Day, June 10th, etc. In fact, let me read the entire list. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Holocaust Day, Day of Remembrance, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Pride Month, Juneteenth, Women's Equality Day, National Hispanic Heritage Month, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, National American Indian Heritage Month. It says DIA will also pause agency resources, groups, affiliated groups, and employee networking groups effective immediately and until further notice. Very, very interesting. Listen at this last video. I have much more to share with you concerning the news and what is happening with respect to the reshaping of not only our government, but the reshaping of our country. A backlash from God's people and from the peoples of the United States is coming. We'll talk more about that next week. Until next week, shalom. Listen at this last video.
Following breaking news from Washington, where as part of President Trump's pushback on diversity and inclusion initiatives, NBC News has learned that the Defense Intelligence Agency has ordered a pause on all events related to MLK Day or Black History Month, which we should note begins tomorrow. Joining us now with more, NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, Atlantic staff writer Ashley Parker, and Aaron Haynes, editor-in-chief at the 19th. So, Kelly, this follows a string of anti-DEI initiatives and messaging from the White House. What's this one about?
Well, certainly what we're seeing is that in this particular agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, there is a memo that has been distributed to staff members making clear that the agency will not support any celebration, commemoration, events associated with Black History Month, Martin Luther King Day, and so forth. Now, Martin Luther King Day is enshrined in federal law as a federal holiday, so it's unclear what that means in terms of how that would be observed. Federal workers do not have to come to work on a federal holiday, to state the obvious. So one of the questions we hope to learn more about is how widespread is this approach? President Trump has been very clear in his public statements and in his use of various instruments with a pen, meaning a memo or an executive order or the various things that we've been seeing him sign since he came into office, very clearly saying that he wants to root out DEI programming and hiring-related practices and so forth. And as he has described it, he wants the best people regardless of what they look like or how they speak or how they live. And so is this a broad policy that will affect all parts of the federal government, or was this the interpretation of a given agency to be in alignment with the White House? Part of what this new Trump administration has been trying to do is to get the federal workforce to be in step with President Trump's priorities and his view of how the federal government should operate in a broad array of areas, and included in that is handling matters that deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion programming. And they have rooted out those programs for funding to say those will no longer be funded. But things like Black History Month, which are celebrated in many different contexts, in workplaces, in communities, and so forth. So we have more questions here about what does this mean and how will the federal workforce note what have been longstanding practices in American culture to honor Black History Month and other kinds of initiatives that lift up parts of our large community, whether it's persons with disabilities, whether it's women's issues, the whole array of things. But at the moment, because as you point out, February 1st begins Black History Month, how will it play out on the federal level? That's part of what we're trying to pursue. We have evidence now of an agency saying no activities, and we want to find out how broad it is.